Have you ever noticed that the more you try to please others, the less people value you? Maybe your life is a series of unrecognized favors, ignored efforts, or even worse, sacrifices that don't pay off in any way. The world taught you to be kind, understanding, and patient. They said that this would be enough to earn you respect and happiness, but you've noticed that this promise is rarely fulfilled. Being nice has become a trap. The nicer you are, the more vulnerable you are to manipulation and emotional exploitation. What if I told you that a thinker named Machiavelli understood this over 500 years ago, and that he could help you break out of this prison? In this video, you will discover that being good is not about pleasing everyone, but about learning to say no without guilt, acting with emotional intelligence and establishing clear limits that no one can cross. The time has come to free yourself from this naive morality and become a strategically strong and authentic person. Before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel. And if any of this has already made you think differently, provoke the algorithm. Click on the like button. This shows that you are not here for nothing. The myth of universal goodness. From an early age, you were conditioned to believe that being a good person is the way to be accepted, loved, and respected. School rewarded obedient students. Families praised children who gave in, who helped, who did not cause conflict. Religion said that humility and forgiveness are absolute virtues, and society in general taught that being good means pleasing, giving in, and serving. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The real world doesn't work that way. In the real world, being too nice often means being disposable. It's the employee who always says yes and ends up overworked. It's the friend who never sets limits and becomes the official listener to other people's dramas. It's the person who accepts crumbs in relationships and continues to believe that love is proven with patience. Kindness has become a spectacle, a performance, not because the intentions are false, but because the system takes advantage of it. People have learned to exploit the nice guys because they know they almost never fight back. They know they hesitate to say no. They know they want to be loved at any cost. Being good, in this context, has become an act of self-effacement disguised as virtue. And before you think that the solution is to become a bad person, understand, it is not about exchanging kindness for cruelty. It is about opening your eyes. Believing in the myth of universal kindness is like living like a lamb in a world of predators. It is betting all your chips on being loved, when what the world really respects is firmness, clarity, and presence. You can continue to try to be kind, understanding, and available, but understand that this will only be valued when it is accompanied by strength. Without it, your kindness is seen as weakness. And as unfair as it may seem, the real world operates by a different logic. It respects those who know how to assert themselves. Machiavelli once said, "Men, in general, judge more with their eyes than with their hands." In other words, it doesn't matter how pure your heart is. What others perceive is what you demonstrate externally. If what you convey is insecurity, passivity, and submission, that's what they will use against you. Your kindness will be treated as a tool, not as a quality. The idealized good person, the one who pleases everyone, who never argues, who accepts everything, is not admired. They are forgotten, ignored, or worse, exploited. And the more you try to maintain this image, the further you move away from your real strength. This is where Machiavelli comes in. He did not condemn goodness, but rather naivety. What he proposed was a new way of living, strategic, lucid, and prepared for the game of life. And to truly understand this, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to understand who Machiavelli was and why he remains as relevant and dangerous as he is today. Who was Machiavelli and what he really said? To understand why Machiavelli is so important in this debate, we must first dispel the distorted image that many have of him. When you hear the name Machiavellian, you probably imagine someone cold, manipulative, even cruel. But this caricature is the result of centuries of misunderstanding and fear. Because Machiavelli did something that few have dared. He revealed how power really works. Niccolo Machiavelli was a 16th century Italian political thinker and author of The Prince, a brutally honest manual on leadership and survival in the game of power. He wrote not to please moralists, but to warn princes and rulers about how to maintain control in an unstable world dominated by betrayal, hidden interests, and appearances. Unlike idealist philosophers, Machiavelli did not portray human beings as good. By nature, he saw reality as it is, harsh, unpredictable, and often unfair. For him, anyone who wanted to maintain stability, respect, or even their own lives needed to learn to play with cunning. They needed to understand that traditional morality alone was insufficient. This is where his most famous quote comes from: "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." This is not a defense of evil, but a call for clarity. Love is unstable, volatile. Fear, on the other hand, when well managed, imposes respect and limits. Another central concept in his work is the idea of virtu, which does not mean virtue in the moral sense, but rather strength, strategic intelligence, and the ability to act decisively. For Machiavelli, a virtuous leader is one who does not hope for the best, but acts with courage and sagacity even in the worst circumstances. And here is the key point. Machiavelli understood that those who cling to an idealized morality, ignoring the real dynamics of life, end up being swallowed up. The same goes for you. You are not the ruler of a state, but the leader of your own life. If you do not know how to identify patterns of manipulation, if you do not know when to retreat or act firmly, you will be dominated by those who do. Machiavelli's genius lies in holding up an uncomfortable mirror. He shows that naive kindness protects no one. He shows that the game is political, even in personal relationships. That respect is not born from gentleness, but from the clarity with which you position yourself. And the most disturbing thing, the more you read Machiavelli, the more you realize that he is not the villain of the story. The villain is the illusion we have been taught, the illusion that all we need to do is be good for the world to do us good. Now that you know Machiavelli, it's time to look within and answer, how has your agreeableness weakened you? The dangers of excessive agreeableness. Everyone knows someone who is too nice. The person who is up for anything, who never complains, who is always available, even when they're exhausted. Sometimes that person is you. And what few people admit is that behind this constant niceness lies an emotional time bomb waiting to explode. Being overly agreeable is a silent form of self-sabotage. At first, it seems like a virtue. You are polite, kind, and avoid conflict. But over time, people realize that they can overstep their bounds without consequences. And what starts out as kindness turns into permissiveness. What was empathy turns into submission. And what seemed like respect turns into contempt. Have you ever wondered why some people don't take you seriously? Why do they say, "You're cool," but it's because you've taught the world, without even realizing it, that you don't set boundaries, that you'd rather be accepted than respected, that you fear confrontation more than you fear your own frustration. This attitude often comes from a deep need. The need for approval makes us believe that if we are good enough, we will finally be valued. But the result is usually the opposite. The more you give in, the more they demand of you. The more you avoid saying no, the further you distance yourself from yourself. The danger here is twofold. First, you lose control of your own life. Your decisions are no longer yours. You start living for others, so as not to disappoint, to avoid conflict, to maintain an image of a good person. Second, you harbor growing resentment. On the outside, you seem calm. On the inside, you are accumulating anger, fatigue, and frustration. And the cruelest part, this servile kindness is not admired. People don't look at a good guy and think, "What an evolved human being." They think, "Another easy one to manipulate." Even if unconsciously they test you, push you, exploit you, because they know you won't react, because they know you'd rather swallow the pain than disappoint someone. This is where Machiavelli's teaching comes in. He would say, "Do you want to be respected? Then stop selling your dignity in exchange for approval. Pleasing everyone is not noble. It is dangerous. It is abdicating one's power. This doesn't mean you have to become aggressive, bitter, or selfish. It means you need to unlearn how to erase yourself. It means you need to start putting yourself first, not with guilt, but with awareness. In practice, this means say no without over-excusing yourself. Decline invitations that overwhelm. You question requests that seem unfair. Stop relationships where you are only useful but never important. These small gestures build a new image, that of someone who is good, yes, but who also respects themselves. Someone who offers support, but does not sacrifice themselves. Someone who understands that being generous with others requires being firm with yourself. The world needs good people, but above all, it needs whole people. And a whole person knows that their kindness cannot cost them their emotional health, their energy, their peace. Now tell me, sincerely, how many times have you hurt yourself trying to be nice to others? Write in the comments. It could be a sentence, a rant, or just a yes. Sometimes, just by saying something, we start to change inside. How to be strategic without being cruel. After so much time trying to please, it's common for the simple idea of imposing yourself to seem wrong. Many people confuse firmness with coldness and strategy with malice. But this is one of the biggest lies we've been told, that in order to be respected, you have to stop being human. Nothing could be further from the truth. Being strategic is not the opposite of being good. It is the opposite of being naive. What Machiavelli proposes is not to abandon ethics, but to combine emotional intelligence with the reality of the social game. In other words, act consciously, not impulsively. Protect yourself without attacking. Position yourself without having to shout. The first rule is clear. Don't react with emotion, act with intention. People who act just to look good live trapped in guilt. Those who act with intention calculate the impact, choose the right moment, and avoid unnecessary stress. This is wisdom, not coldness. Imagine someone who keeps saying yes out of fear of hurting others. This person seems kind, but they are putting themselves down. Now imagine someone who says no calmly, explains their reasons, and stands their ground without getting upset. Who do you respect more? The secret is to build a firm but calm posture, a presence that communicates limits without having to impose them. And this starts with something simple but powerful: consistency. When you act predictably, clearly and fairly, people begin to understand that you are not messing around. They stop testing your limits, because they already know how far they can go. Being strategic also involves observing before acting. Machiavelli said that a wise prince always studies the movements of others before making his own. In your daily life, this means listening more, identifying patterns, and perceiving hidden intentions. Not every smile is sincere. Not every help is selfless. Those who observe see what the distracted do not. Another essential point: don't say everything you think, and don't show everything you feel. This isn't falsehood, it's protection. Your vulnerability needs to be well managed. There are times to open your heart, and there are times to retreat and protect yourself. Knowing the difference between the two is what separates the naive from the strategic. And finally, understand that you don't have to justify yourself all the time. The more you try to explain your decisions to please others, the more you open yourself up to being questioned, manipulated, or pressured. A no thank you might be enough, and I can't today might end the matter. When you stop begging for understanding, you start to be respected. Being strategic means living in balance. It means offering what is good, but never at the expense of your own value. It means understanding that your peace is worth more than the opinion of someone who is only by your side while you are useful. It means realizing that truly mature people are not afraid of firmness. They approach it. Machiavelli knew that the world was driven by self-interest, fear, power, and image. You can deny this and continue to be left behind. Or you can accept this reality and learn to play ethically but without naivety. And this choice, believe me, starts with the details. How you respond to a message, how you react to criticism, how you manage your time. Every small gesture can communicate one thing: I know myself, I respect myself, and I am not here to be exploited. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the practical applications of all this. You'll see how this mindset can transform your relationships, your professional life, and even the way you interact with friends and family. Practical applications: relationships, work, social life. Now that you understand the difference between naive kindness and strategic intelligence, it's time to apply this to the real world, because there's no point in knowing how to position yourself in theory and continuing to nullify yourself in practice. Real change happens in everyday life, in small confrontations, in silent decisions, in the phrases you learn to say without trembling. Let's start with romantic relationships. Many people enter relationships trying to please others all the time, out of fear of being abandoned. They make too many concessions, hide their discomforts, and constantly adapt. This seems like love, but it's self-denial. Healthy love requires reciprocity, not submission. A person who respects you won't leave because you said no. Someone who leaves because of this wasn't there for you. They were there for control. Applying Machiavelli's logic here is not being cold. It is being clear. It is knowing how to say, I don't agree with that. I don't feel good when that happens. This crosses a line that is important to me. Relationships don't survive on affection alone. They survive on respect. And respect is born when you show that your presence is a choice, not an obligation. At work, the scenario is not much different. How many times have you accumulated tasks that were not yours just to avoid conflict, or remained silent in the face of unfair criticism, or agreed to an absurd deadline just to avoid upsetting others? The truth is that the market doesn't just reward those who deliver, it rewards those who assert themselves. Being competent is essential. What sets you apart is your ability to position yourself clearly, without fear of appearing difficult. Phrases like, "This demand is not compatible with the time available. I need you to be more specific with this feedback. This is not the ideal time for this conversation," are not signs of arrogance. They are signs of professionalism. Those who set limits intelligently avoid overload, protect their energy, and gain respect. In fact, in many cases, you will find that after you take a stand, people will start to listen more to what you say. And what about your social life? How many invitations have you accepted just to avoid appearing rude? How many conversations have you had even though you didn't want to be there? How many times have you failed to set limits to avoid awkward situations? Here, the rule is simple. You shouldn't be where you're not treated well or valued. And yes, this can include old groups, worn-out friendships, even family members. Being polite doesn't mean being available for everything. And those who really want you around will understand when you say not today. Being socially strategic is knowing when to get out of a circle, know when not to respond immediately, knowing when silence is worth more than 1,000 justifications. It's not about becoming an island, but about being selective, because energy is limited, and those who try to please everyone will exhaust themselves before they can even take care of themselves. In every relationship, every conversation, every daily decision, you can choose. Continue to please others in order to be accepted, or position yourself in order to be respected. Machiavelli would say that the second path is the only sustainable one. Now tell me, in which of these areas do you most need to start positioning yourself? Relationships, work, or social life? If this chapter touched you at any point, click the like button. It's not because of the video, it's because of you. Because the simple act of reacting already shows that you're ready to turn the game around. The transformation from naive to strategic. By now you've understood that trying to be a good person all the time is not a virtue, it's a risk, and that Machiavelli didn't want you to become cruel, but conscious. Now, it's time to look at this transformation more clearly. How can someone who was driven by the need to please become someone who is driven by his own presence? The turning point begins with a simple realization. You no longer need to justify yourself all the time. Your existence is not on trial. You are not here to fit into anyone else's mold. The naive person believes that being loved by everyone is a sign of success. The strategic person understands that the respect of the right is worth more than the approval of the many. This transformation is silent but brutal. You start to talk less and observe more. You start to identify who approaches you out of interest and who stays out of connection. You start to make choices that strengthen you, even if it bothers those who were used to benefiting from your passivity. And the most interesting thing, you don't have to change your essence. You can continue to be generous, sensitive, and considerate. But now with one crucial difference. You choose when and with whom. Your kindness stops being a bargaining chip. It becomes a real expression of your integrity. You stop asking permission to exist. You stop begging for affection. You stop accepting emotional crumbs in the name of peace, because you finally understand that a peace that costs your dignity is not peace at all. It's submission in disguise. This transformation is also painful. Some people will drift away. Some connections will die. But what's left is gold. What's left is the whole you, not a piece of you molded to fit into someone else's world. Machiavelli never preached the destruction of ethics. He simply gave us tools so that ethics would not be what destroys us. He understood that in the real world, kindness without strategy is an open door to abuse. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a huge step. You're not the same anymore. The question now is, are you willing to live as someone who respects themselves, even if it means discomfort? Are you ready to make a difference instead of keeping quiet? If so, comment below. When was the moment in your life when you realized that being too nice only hurt you? You don't need to explain yourself too much. You can be direct. Because sometimes just by writing, you reaffirm this change within yourself. You've spent your life trying to be a good person, trying not to upset, not to disappoint, not to confront. But now you know, that's not kindness, it's fear. And fear doesn't build respect or freedom. Machiavelli taught us that the world does not work on good intentions. It works on perception, strategy, and strength of presence. If you do not assert yourself, someone else will impose something on you. If you do not say who you are, the world will decide for you. From now on, the choice is yours. Continue seeking approval or start building authority. Continue begging for affection or start being remembered as someone who respects themselves. The world may resist at first, but it always ends up giving in to those who know their own worth. And if this video really touched you, don't go away in silence. Subscribe to the channel now, not to please me, but for yourself. To keep reminding yourself every week that you weren't born to be small. You were born to take up your space, whole,